Hey everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're in my corner and I have a very special guest in the corner. Would you like to unveil your not so secret identity?
Sure. This is voice actor Dino Andrade.
And thank you very much for coming onto the show. It's certainly an honor.
Oh,
Um,
my pleasure. My pleasure.
you've been in some fantastic video games and projects, but I,
Thank you.
I always love to start, the very first time we have a guest on with the very, very basic question, which is what sparked your interest into acting?
What sparked my interest into acting? Wow. Well, when I was a kid, I fell in love with all manner of character performances. That really did it for me. I saw Bride of Frankenstein, and I just watched Boris Karloff on that screen, and it just blew me away. I watched growing up Columbo with Peter Falk, and watching this character just playing the fool and yet solving all these crimes. It was amazing stuff, and really enjoying a lot of performances by people like William Bendix, Peter Lorre, Humphrey Bogart, a lot of great classic films, and then getting into classic science fiction, people like Gene Roddenberry and Rod Serling, Ray Bradbury. These folks were gods to me, and I would watch Twilight Zone and Planet of the Apes and Star Trek and all of these things, and just said, I want to be in that. I want to be involved in great works of imagination, and it seemed like the most fun way to do that would be as a character actor. So that's so really you combine my love of character acting with my love of science fiction, horror, and fantasy, and the two collided and created who you have on the phone now.
Well, I love how you mentioned Boris Karloff because, like, in terms of my movie knowledge, it's a pastime to watch like Bela Lugosi and Boris every like year with a bunch of friends. So I love that you
Oh, that's
mentioned
great.
that.
Oh, that's great. I've always loved his accent, just with that slight lisp that he's got. Yes. Then, of course, there's Bela Lugosi. That up and down sing-songy thing that he's did. Yes. No, I love those guys. Love those guys. They were they were like fantasy heroes. I wanted to be them. It was like when I was a kid and I saw Frankenstein, I was like, wow, I guess being a mad scientist is what I want to be. And then realized, no, I want to play that. That's what I want to do. So yeah, it all came out of my love of that great fantasy storytelling.
Well, I think those are fantastic examples, especially if you're trying to pull characters from because they're so iconic and they're so I don't want to necessarily say exaggerated, but it's like the pinnacle of that stereotype, if you will, because it was the first of its kind.
Yeah, that was very much, very much the groundbreakers, the ones who were figuring. I mean, you're talking actors who were trained during, and then when they were young, they were trained during the silent era, and then they cut their teeth on stage, and it was there that they were learning how to take what they learned on stage and then translate that into this new medium of sound film. Frankenstein, Dracula, these films were made in 1931. Sound film hadn't even been 10 years old at that point. So yeah, they were breaking new ground in characterizations and entertainment. It was quite wonderful.
Well, now I always like to ask this as well. What do you
Sure.
think was your lucky break and into the industry? And I say lucky break because some people trip and fall into it, some people use their connections, and some people just get that really good audition. So,
Well, I'll tell you. Number one, I don't consider myself lucky or anyone else who does what I do for a living lucky. I prefer to say that I'm fortunate because luck implies that no talent or training was involved. And the fact is, there are an awful lot of extremely talented, extremely well trained, more talented than I, more trained people than I who, for whatever reason, aren't able to make a living at this, and I am. So I consider myself very fortunate. I think everyone who does what I do should feel fortunate. I don't believe in entitlement. I believe in being grateful and realizing that, there's a lot of extremely talented people out of work. So that said, there's all kinds of different things, but if I was to say specifically voiceover as opposed to doing something that had a big splash that really caught the eye of fandom, which that has to be Arkham Asylum. That was what really got a lot of people's attention. But where I first broke in, I was doing sound work. I was doing Foley walking, if you know what that is. It's where you're doing sound effects manually while watching a film on screen. Like somebody's walking, you're the one who's actually doing the footsteps and so on. It's being dubbed in. It's called Foley effects, Foley walking. I was doing that for a film in 1984 called House. It was a comedy horror film starring Richard Mall and William Catt. And I was actually doing the footsteps of a gal that, if you watch the movie, there's this statuesque kind of Scandinavian blonde bombshell in high heels walking on this patio in the backyard. That's actually me in a pair of high heels doing the sound of the walk. And there were these little demon creatures in it, and director Steve Miner hadn't actually cast the voices for those. And these little guys did these kind of maniacal laughs, these little and these kinds of things. And I just did that. I just blurted that out there, and Steve Miner said, "Oh, that sounds great. Let's do that." And so I did those voices, and that was it. I then went on to do other, background voices and monsters and things in different films, and kind of worked my way up from there. So that's where it all started for me, was basically being a Foley walker on House. So I'm just me standing there in a pair of women's high heels walking for a tall statuesque Scandinavian blonde. That's where I was and what I was doing when the break happened.
Well, I do always love to hear origin stories, if you will. But I'm glad that you mentioned Batman Arkham Asylum, because you killed me so many times in that game.
I'm just the voice monkey. I didn't program it. I apologize. Not my fault. But I have to say I enjoyed doing it.
Well, with that game specifically, if it makes you feel better, I did platinum that game. Like, I literally did every single thing in that game possible. Oh. So, I'm just giving you a hard time.
No, that was an amazing experience. That was a truly amazing experience. I remember when I got when my agent sent me the audition copy, and I saw the Scarecrow, and I saw the Joker, and they were saying we were looking specifically for someone who can do Mark Hamill's Joker. And I worked and worked and worked hard on that, because clearly they hadn't made the deal with Hamill yet. Mm-hmm. And nobody even knew they were going to make, at least I didn't know they were going to make the deal with Hamill, and I worked really, really hard on that. And so I auditioned for both Joker and Scarecrow. And when my agent called to say, "Hey, you booked Arkham Asylum," I started jumping up and down, because the Joker's like the holy grail for those of us who've done a lot of villains. I mean, my goodness, I've done an awful lot of villains, and the Reaper and Brutal Legend and Professor Putricide and Mechatork, and well, he's not a villain. Mimiron, that's the guy, in World of Warcraft and so on. And I've actually just done 2 more villains for Warcraft, but I can't really tell you much more than that on that one. But I got the call from the agent, and I said immediately, "Did I get Joker?" And they said, "No, you got Scarecrow." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well that's fine." And then I find out that that Joker actually went to Mark Hamill, and there was no shame in that, losing the Joker to Mark Hamill. And then I got to see the script for what it was the Scarecrow was doing, and it was like, ooh, oh, this is gonna be good. And now I've gone from being disappointed that I didn't book the Joker to yeah, let's do it. Yeah, and it was amazing. I'm being directed by Colette Sunderman. The rest of the cast is just phenomenal. It was an amazing experience. It really was, and in many ways it's changed my life, because both that and an awful lot of the stuff that I did for World of Warcraft all broke at the same time. And next thing I know, I'm being invited to conventions all over the country. And that's amazing. That had never happened to me before. In fact, this weekend, I'm going to be at VenturaCon for 3 days. And then 2 days later, I fly to Atlanta for DragonCon. And 1 week after DragonCon, I will be in Long Beach for Long Beach Comic Con. All signings because of this. So it's been an amazing ride, and I couldn't be happier.
Well, that's wonderful to hear, and I'm sure the fans, specifically with Batman, they appreciate what Scarecrow brings to the game, because it brings a horror element that no other villain really gives the game.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was very intentional. It was very, very intentional. Whenever I play a villain, I always ask myself, first of all, is this an archetypal villain? In other words, is this like just a really evil character, is essentially a demon in human form, or is this a Shakespearean villain? Someone who doesn't think that they're a bad guy, who is thought of as a demon, but is just a human being, who thinks perhaps they're just righting some wrong, like Lex Luthor. I'm not really a villain. I'm just the smartest man in the room who's got the courage to do what other people don't. Yeah, that type of thing. And when I broke it down, I thought this is a wonderful opportunity to play both sides of it, because I could play Shakespearean with Crane, and then archetypal with Scarecrow, and have two completely different mentalities going into it as an actor. And that was really fun. It was a great challenge and so much fun to do. And because I was approaching the two sides of the character differently, I got to add all of these wonderful little bits of subtext and layers in there that just made it so much fun to play. And so yeah, when I was Crane, it was very much Shakespearean. But when I'm Scarecrow, I was going for horror film. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Awesome. And it's great for you too, also working on World of Warcraft, because there's so many characters involved with that it seems like every hour you just get to switch into a new character.
Oh yeah. That's the folks at Blizzard are wonderful. The folks at Blizzard are just wonderful. I have so much fun with these guys. It's gotten to the point now where they can toss characters at me that I've never auditioned for, have never seen, and they just know I'm going to come up with something for them that they're really going to enjoy, and we have a great time. I'm so grateful to be associated with the folks at Blizzard. I love them. They love me. It's great.
Now, for creatures specifically, what sort of descriptions really help you achieve that sort of weird sound of this otherworldly kind of character?
Well, one of the things about acting is that you've got all kinds of tools to help you play pretend, basically. I mean, that's what I do. I play pretend for a living. That's it. And one of the biggest tools for me in my training is visualization. And so oftentimes I'm given a character sheet that has an image on it, and I look at that and see what little clues this gives me. But then I'm also drawing from memory anything that I can visualize that will get me there. And this is where my being also a huge geek comes in handy, because I know that, like, for example, when I did one of the minor characters in there, I think it was like Ensign Ebert or something in there, they're on a ship and it's being attacked by a creature. They said this creature is like what they call a Cthulhu, and let me show you a picture and references. And I said, H.P. Lovecraft Cthulhu, I know that is. It's no problem. I already was able to picture that in my head. Or I did this character that was called the Twilight Servant. I don't know what it was finally called in the game, but they said, yeah, we're looking for a character who's similar to Brad Dourif in Lord of the Rings, who played Grimer Wormtongue. Let me show you some pictures. And I was like, no, I got it. I saw Lord of the Rings, know who that is, and so on. I'm familiar with all these. So it helped that I already knew all of this geeky stuff, that I didn't have to look through the reference books that they bring to the sessions to help the actors along. And then when I have to do something like when I did the Battle of Nomergon speech as Mechatork, because you don't in video games get to see scripts in advance. Arkham Asylum was really an exception. You have very little time to prepare, and you have to kind of go on the fly. And they told me that this was the Battle of Nomergon speech, and Mechatork is talking to this huge throng of cheering people. And so immediately I visualize in my head conquest of the planet of the apes, Caesar standing on the parapet, the city behind him is in flames, the humans are on their knees in front of him, and all the apes are cheering beyond that, with the little smoke rising in the moonlight. And I just solidly pictured that in my head, and I went for it. So that's, the visualization gets me there. And then as far as the vocal manipulations, that comes just from looking at the image and getting some idea of what that might be, and just playing with my voice, adding different layers. It's a deep voice. Okay, then I'll try what we would call a chest voice, and I'll boom it from the chest. And then we want more of a hollow sound. Oh, okay, well then I'll open up the throat so that it has that layered on top of it. Okay, that's cool. Well, this is also kind of a demon. This is not a human, and it's gonna have this weird breath pattern. Like, okay, so then I'll layer on top of. I'll take the chest voice, open up the throat to give it the barrel sound, and now I'll breathe through the lines. And so I'm just taking the picture to give me an idea of what the starting point is, and then on top of that I'm layering one thing on top of another. Like, okay, throat voice, layer the barrel sound, layer the breathing, and one layer after another until we find the character. And then how the character performs comes out of the visualization.
Well, that's fantastic insight. And for the fans out there, I believe officially on your website you also do one-on-one and group workshops if people have additional questions and wish to better their craft.
Yeah, actually, funny you should mention that. That is going to be coming down, because now I am an official teacher at what is known around here as K&K, which is Kalmanson and Kalmanson, which is one of the top voiceover casting houses on the planet. I now have an exclusive contract with them as an animation voiceover teacher. But that doesn't mean that you still can't get a chance to learn from me. In fact, at DragonCon next Thursday, the 3rd, I believe it is, I will be doing a one-day workshop there at DragonCon, which let's see if I can tell you here. Just go to dragoncon.com, and you can go to a page that is workshops. DragonCon.org. Go to dragoncon.org and click on a link for workshops, and you'll see a workshop for how to create VO characters for animation and video games. And I will teach you what I know, and that's going to be this coming Thursday, September 3rd. And it's a one-day workshop, one day only, and you can learn what I do for a living, how to create characters for animation and video games.
Well, congratulations on the exclusivity contract.
Thank you. Thank you.
And also, will those, I'm assuming, will be more in person and not over Skype?
Oh no! These are full workshops. At K&K, as well as the one at DragonCon, where it is live with students with real copy and all that good stuff. It's all I am there in person. And these are not Skype classes.
And that's fantastic, because I think you learn a lot about how people kind of, I think movement is something that is kind of overlooked in voiceover a lot for people who are starting to learn. So I recommend for everybody, if you can do a class where you sit down with other people, please do so.
Oh yeah. Well, Bob Bergen, the voice of Porky Pig, and a great friend of mine, has said many times, and he taught me a lot of the craft. He has said many times, you act with your entire body, the voice will follow. And I found that this part of the lesson of learning how to create characters using your entire body is a bit difficult to do over Skype. It is so yeah. Taking a class where you're there in person, you get so much more.
And for the fans out there, are there any other projects that are coming out soon that you want them to look out for? Anything that recently came out that you want them to keep track of?
Well, unfortunately, I have done a bunch of stuff for World of Warcraft, a major video game that I just recorded, and another one I'm recording this Thursday, all of which are under NDA.
Darn.
So I'm not allowed to talk about any of them. So sorry. But I can tell you, yeah, there is a lot of stuff coming up that I'm doing. So you can look for any news from my Twitter would be a good one, which is at Dino Andrade.
Fantastic. And you also have a website as well.
And I have the website as well, which is going to be updated with a whole bunch of new stuff. Not sure if I'm going to manage to get it done before the end of this week as I go on this 3-week 3 conventions run, but yeah, it's going to be updated with a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I know how the convention run is, especially when it's back to back to back. It's crazy.
It is. It is nuts. It is nuts. But again, I'm a very fortunate guy. I mean, they fly you out there, they put you up. I spend all day meeting wonderful fans at cons that I would probably go to anyway because I'm such a huge geek, which is one of the things that is so much fun about this. You talk to, like, for example, Tim Russ, who played Tuvok on Star Trek Voyager. He's a huge science fiction fan and a huge fan of Star Trek, and he wanted to be involved from day one, and he considers himself a fan who made it. And so do I. That's how I look at it. I'm not one of these guys that, well, I'm just an actor and I happen to fall into this science fiction thing, and hey, they've got fans and they go to conventions and whatever. It's like, no, this is important to me. I'm one of you. I'm a huge fan, and I consider myself a fan who made it.
Well, I think a lot of the fans can, appreciate that line of thought. And hopefully they'll keep track of your social media. That way they can, look out for any other conventions you're invited to.
Sure, absolutely. And for any of you fans who are over the age of 18, and or will be soon, there's also SoulGeek.com, which it's basically Match.com for fans of science fiction, horror, fantasy, and animation, and I'm the guy who created that as well.
Yeah, I looked into that actually. I'm not currently looking, so I didn't look too far, but I did very much like the design of the site, and it seemed very easy to use.
Oh, great. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We've had almost 30 weddings. We've just had our first SoulGeek Baby born, and the second one will be born near the end of this year. So we are pretty proud and happy of this little cloud of geek heaven we've created.
Well, for the fans out there, since we're nearing the end of this interview, I was wondering if you'd be willing to participate in a 91.8 The Fan tradition.
And what might that be?
We basically ask everyone, whether they're a voice actor or not, if they'd be willing to do a radio bump for us.
Sure.
Fantastic. The trick of it, however, is that we do the takes live on air, so if you mess up, everybody hears it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I can type this out to you as well, but we basically ask if you say, "Hello, my name is," you insert your name. "I do this," you can put whatever you want, And you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan.
Okay, hold on. Let's turn that off. Okay, so, all right. Run that by me one more time.
Okay, I'm also going to type this in the chat for you just as well. But it's, hello, my name is, I do this, and you can put whatever you want. You can put your website, you can put characters. It's all up to you. And you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan.
Okay.
So whenever you're ready, we're recording.
Okay. This is Dino Andrade, the voice of the Scarecrow from Batman Arkham Asylum. And you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan.
That was fantastic and bone-chilling. That's going to be a new favorite one to play at cons when people walk by and they're like, oh god, what was that?
Cool.
But no, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the listeners out there? Any words of wisdom, dating advice, predictions for the end of the world?
Okay, just real quick for anybody who's tuning in because it's your dream to be a voice actor. Number one piece of advice, it's not about your voice. It is about your skills as an actor. Being able to do all kinds of different voices is a great help and makes you versatile. But number one, be the best actor you can be. Take acting classes. We are all of us who are pros at this are all trained actors. So there's my piece of advice to anyone out there who wants to do what I do for a living.
Well, thank you so much for providing the listeners with that. And for anybody out there that missed any of this interview, don't fret. You can find it on the website within the next few days. So keep your eyes peeled to 918thefan.com and your ears tuned to 91.8 The Fan, where we play everything you want and nothing you don't.